give Seena a big round of applause.
So my name is Seena Hodges, and I was born on December 6th, 1976. Now, usually I never say that date out loud because I just don't. But today I have a name that I didn't have when I was born. On the day that I was born, my father, whose name was Willie, desperately wanted me to be named Wilhelmina. My mother, whose name is Marilyn, desperately wanted me to be named Cheyenne. They fought, and somehow my name became S-E-N-A. Now, why was it S-E-N-A? It's because my brother's name is Sean, S-E-A-N. And they had fought so much that they were just tired of trying to figure out what they were going to do that my mother just took my brother's name and rearranged the letters. Now, it was imperfect, of course, but it was a solution. And the reality was, once the nurses saw it on the placard, they started calling me Senna. And my mom said, I don't like that. So she said, put another E in it. Like add water and stir. So she put an E in it, and I became Seena. And so I've always had people in my life who care for me and people who are looking out for me and trying to create the best scenarios for me. And for that, I am grateful. Oftentimes, when people are babies and they start to talk, their very first words are things like mama or dada. I didn't do that. When I was a kid, my very first words were a sentence. And the sentence was, I do it. And it annoyed the shit out of my mom because she always wanted to have a little baby girl. And I was the first baby girl, so she wanted to dress me and do all these things. Add to it the fact that I never liked to wear dresses, so that was another piece that annoyed her greatly. But I would always say, I do it. So my dad would say, let her do it. So sometimes I would have my shoes on the wrong feet or my shirt on inside out. The point was, though, that I had done it myself, and that was really all that mattered. As I started to move through my life, I recognized that while it's okay to do a lot of things yourself, you can't do all things yourself, right? And so I started to recognize and understand and realize that as I got older. That's the very beginning of my journey. Those two stories tell you a lot about who I am to this day. I want to say thank you for having me here today. Drew, thank you so much for the invitation to be here today to talk to you about journeys, my journey. Today, I am going to tell you pieces of my journey. And I'm going to promise you that I'm not solving any of your problems today. I just hope that by hearing what I have to say, that there's something there that you can pull apart and tease apart for yourself, right? It's really challenging to try to figure out how to solve things for other folks, but for me, I do that in my day-to-day life, but today, I just want it to be. And I want to start it just by talking about what a journey is. When you look it up, you see two things. One, you see the band, of course, because Steve Perry. And you also see them talk about a trip, especially a long one, to a faraway place, right? So for me, I think about a journey as a continuous process of growth, learning, and evolution. I think if we think about the fact that, I told you my origin story, that's our birth date, right? I started with my birth date. Your journey is that dash in the middle. And then inevitably, we all have a death date, right? So there's your birth date that goes with your origin story. There's that dash in the middle that's your long journey. And then there's your death date at the end. And we all have that. So the reality of it is that our journeys include different things. For me, so far, my journey has included things like I worked as a publicist for Broadway shows. That was really fun and interesting, and I have lots of stories, but probably can't tell all of them. My journey also includes me starting a business. My journey includes me 2 years ago saying, I'm gonna go back to school and I'm gonna get a PhD. Why? I don't know, but that's where I am right now, right? My journey also includes a stint as the president of the board of trustees for the Walker Art Center and being the first person of color to ever do that in the history of the organization, right? And that was just 2 years ago, right? So we're still in that place of talking about progress. My journey, however, also includes a job that offered me the wonderful opportunity to work myself so hard that I ended up in the back of an ambulance, scared out of my mind. And this happened to me twice, once in St. Paul and once in Las Vegas, where you really don't want to be in the emergency room, but alas, that's what happened, right? One night I went to happy hour with a friend. I should have known something was up because if I looked at how much money I was spending every month on happy hour, it was really a lot. And anytime you're doing something a lot that's really not always great for you, then there's a reason for that. I wasn't able to connect the dots then. But at a point, we were sitting at the bar, and all of a sudden, I say to her, something's wrong. And she said, what's wrong? I said, the vision in my left eye just went out. And she said, oh shit. So we got in her car. We go to the urgent care, and the doctor looks at me. She's a Black woman, and she says, I don't know what's happening to you right now, but I cannot confirm that you're not having a stroke. So they put me in the back of an ambulance. And, my friend got in the front, and she's holding my purse and all my belongings, and we're, making jokes so that, I don't really zone in on the severity of what's actually happening. I say, I need you to call my husband. My husband's an actor. He's on stage, and he gets the message, and he finally shows up, and he knows that I've been stressed out. And then when he finds out about my vision, he looks at me, and he says, okay, are you auditioning to be a pirate? Like, what's going on? But that's what I needed in the moment because it was really, really, really weird, right? But I tell you this story to say that on the other side of this, after speaking to doctors, I find out I have 20% vision loss to this day in my left eye, right? I'm fine. You don't know it if you look at me. It's not something I ever talk about, so I don't know why I'm here at Creative Mornings, just like telling you all my personal business. But here we go. Drew asked, and I'm offering. But the point I'm making here is that a lot of times on our journeys, we have to be attentive to the things that are happening around us. If you're riding in a car and you're in the driver's seat, the passenger seat, the back seat, wherever you are, you have access to the windows. You can see what's going on around you. You can choose to sleep. You can choose to read a book, right? But you can also choose to take it in. And around us, while we're on this highway of life, there are a lot of signs. Are you paying attention to those signs? Are they going right past you? Are you just like, oh, that's pretty. I love blue, right? Sometimes we're like that. And sometimes we have the ability to do that, but not always. And so when I think about where I am on my journey, I'm really clear. I'm probably clearer than I've ever been. Over the break, I read a book. It was called Set Boundaries, Find Peace. Yes, right? And I was highlighting and circling and doing all this because I was like, yes, yes, yes. But that's exactly what I needed for myself because I was really screwed up. And I just want to acknowledge that it's okay to be mentally, physically exhausted. It's okay to feel like you feel. Feelings, while they are not facts, they are valid, right? All the ways that you feel and find yourself are valid. Anybody know what the Centers for Disease Control and the American Medical Association did in 2020 and 2021? A lot of work, yes, but there's something very specific that they did. There's something very, very specific that they did. Both of those institutions declared racism a public health crisis. So let me tell you what that means for me. What that means is that being a Black woman in this body impacts my life expectancy and my life experiences. So I want you to sit with that. If racism is in fact a public crisis, a public health crisis, there are many of us who are dying a slow death every day around something that we cannot control. I want to further complicate that for you by offering that not only am I Black, but I'm a woman. And the reality of that circumstance means that intersectionality is at play. I experience racism, but I also experience sexism. And it's important to understand those distinctions as I move through the world on my journey, because it's an important piece of who I am. I want to talk about being at the point of no return, when it feels like you're so exhausted. My work was what sent me in an ambulance. We have to pay more attention to who we are and where we are and what the things are around us. Like, what are the signs? You cannot miss the signs. I want to be extremely candid and say, you know, in my life, I feel like in 2025, this is the year for me to cross my arms and my ankles, right? I feel like I'm going to tap out, take a break. I got on my sneakers today. I'm just like, yeah, this is what 2025 looks like for me. And you might have made a decision for yourself about what your year looks like. But in my brain, based on my lived experience, there's always this notion that I should do more, that I can do more. And why don't I do more? Because I have the ability. And then sometimes it causes me to push myself to the brink, and then I can't do anymore. And my body will literally just sit me down. I had a day last week where when I woke up, it was noon. And it was the first time I had opened my eyes. That happened to anybody? Like, that hasn't happened to me in years. But I woke up at noon, and it was like, yes, first time you got up today, right? So that literally happened. So that's my body saying to me that I need to rest. The other thing is that in my community, one of the things that people are fond of saying that I believe is true, that a lot of times we love our sons, but we raise our daughters. We love our sons, but we raise our daughters. And it just means that sometimes on your journey, especially if you identify as a woman, it can make it more challenging, especially for me, again, Black woman in this body. So I think it's time for us to create a new narrative, right? And I think we have to reframe this narrative, and we have to really think about rest, not just as something that we do in between the projects that we work on. We have to think about rest as an investment so that we can actually do those projects. The other thing is that we have to set boundaries. And sometimes people think boundaries just means saying no to everything, right? I used to have this saying, and I used to say all the time, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. But I was still doing every fucking thing anyway, so it didn't even matter, right? So the reality is that boundaries just mean you know what's healthy for you. You know what works for you. You know when you're gonna say, yes, I'm gonna go hang out with you all, or no, I already took off my bra, so I'm gonna sit down tonight. So there it is, right? So the reality is that we have to understand that rest is an investment and boundary setting is key. My hero this week, and on most days, is Michelle Obama. Michelle Obama said, I'm not going to the inauguration. And she didn't say why she's not going. She just said, I'm not going, right? And I want to encourage us to use that in our own lives. I want to encourage us to think about what are the things that we're saying yes to constantly that we should not say yes to? What are the things that are exhausting us, that are tiring us out, that are taking us away from our true mission and our true purpose, right? That's a reality for us, that a lot of times we're moved away from the things that we're supposed to be doing because we're doing things that we shouldn't be doing. And that, again, I told you I couldn't solve your problems, but hopefully there's an illumination happening right there with that one, right? That it's a reality that we need to understand how to rest better and how we can set better boundaries for ourselves, because that is a really important thing. So oftentimes when you feel like you're run down, or you feel like you're in a moment where things are not working as well as they should, a lot of us turn to creativity. If you know this, last year was the 100th anniversary of the Harlem Renaissance, right? And the Harlem Renaissance was spurned out of a time where in this country there was enslavement. And then after enslavement, there was a very brief Reconstruction. And then we moved from Reconstruction right into, Jim Crow laws, right? But a lot of times when there are moments in history when things feel really hard and really tough, our way through is creativity. Our way through is art. And so if you're sitting here in this moment feeling like, what is it that you're going to give to the world, or what gift are you going to give to yourself right now? It's creativity. How can we be more creative? How can we not do the same shit over and over and over? How can we be different, right? Because up to this point, some of the things that we've been doing haven't worked. So if we want to see a different world, if we want to experience something different from ourselves, it means that the inputs have to be different. And in order to change your inputs, you have to really be aware of what you're already putting in. Some of us just do things rote. We just do it. But I'm challenging you, as you start this new year, to take a pause. And I'm not telling you to set resolutions. I don't even believe in resolutions. But what I'm asking you to do is just take a pause and move through the world with a greater sense of intentionality. Be more intentional. And the reason why it's important for us to be more intentional, because there are so many things that are happening around us. I'd be very remiss if I came here and I didn't talk to you about the word woke. And the reason why I'm telling you to have a level of awareness is because it's really important to pay attention to what's happening around you. If you're in these cars and you're looking out the windows, you gotta wake up. Here's what it means when I use the word woke. The first part of that is that, number one, no matter who you are just the sum of your lived experiences. If I say to someone in here, what happens at a powwow? And you say, I don't know. That's not good or bad. It just is. You've never been. And that's okay. And no one's judging you for that. That's just your lived experience. The second thing we have to recognize is that nobody in this room, nobody in this world has a quintessential lived experience. I love Beyonce. I opened with her song. I think she's great. But she got a tour schedule. She got 3 kids. She probably needs to keep her mom off the internet because Mama Tina is on it all the time, right? So Beyonce doesn't even have the quintessential lived experience, right? So if we recognize that we're just the sum of what we've lived, no one has the quintessential lived experience, it means that we have to awaken to the experiences of other people. How many of you fly on airplanes, right? If you're like me, you might be a bit of an overpacker. So when I get to the airport, the first thing I look for is that curb cut. And I look for that curb cut because that curb cut helps me pull my luggage up on the curb. That curb cut exists because of the Americans with Disabilities Act. And the reality of the situation is that if we can awaken to the challenges that other people face, and if we can create solutions, those solutions are often inclusive enough to help everyone. This idea that we are doing something for that group of people and it doesn't benefit us all is ridiculous. So we have to have an eye toward inclusion, and we have to wake the F up. We can no longer sleep through life. That's a very important thing. And so I do what I do every day, the work of waking people up, as creatively as I can. And I do this work, however, because I want to provide closures for my ancestors. Because they all had a birth date, a death date, and a dash in the middle. And in that dash, they worked like hell so that I could be a first president of a board, so that I can own a business, so that I could stand here today in front of you in sneakers with my natural hair busting out of my head, talking, right? That's what it was for. And I do this for them because someday someone is going to say that I did it for them, right? And this is what it is. We have to think about the future. Yes, the moment that we're in is important, but it's also important that we're thinking about the future and who we want to be and what legacies we want to leave. And our journey is a perfect opportunity for us to leave a legacy. So when I think about how we leave a legacy, here's some of the things that I think we can do. The first thing is give a damn. You all said it earlier, but right, it's important that you care about something other than yourself, right? When we move through the world as selfless, selfish beings, that's a very hard place to work from. It's very difficult to be able to plug in, right? The other thing is that we have to be able to push beyond where we're comfortable. Oftentimes I say comfort is the devil. Now, I don't mean that if you're talking about your blanket and your pillow and you're laying down somewhere, you're cozy and you got your little puppy or something next to you, that's what happens, right? Comfort is good. But if we want to grow, we have to go outside of the spaces. For example, Monday is Dr. King Day. Lord Jesus, this weekend, please read something before you post on Monday, the one time you're going to do it all year, right? And if you're going to post on Monday, post on Tuesday, Wednesday, keep it up, right? We don't need the annual post. It doesn't help anybody, right? If you're not posting every day or doing something, just let it go. We're good. To that point, change what's not working, right? If there's something that is happening in your life and it's not getting you the results you want, we're all old enough to know now that we have to do different things to get different outcomes. Also, avoid being an ask hole. What an ask hole is sometimes people who have a difficulty making decisions. So you ask people and you put your labor on other people to help educate you or to help you figure things out. That just makes everybody tired, right? So essentially what I'm asking you to do is to do your own work, because that's an important part of every journey, being willing to do your own work. Because a lot of us love to take credit, but if you're going to take credit, that means you have to put in on the group project, right? That's how that goes in life. I started today with a song called Blackbird. It was performed by Beyonce. However, the song was written by Paul McCartney originally and recorded by the Beatles. Paul McCartney wrote this song in response to what he was seeing in the United States in the civil rights movement. He wrote it for Black women as a bit of a love letter, but more than anything to say that I see you. And I just want to take a moment here to just talk a little bit about my experience as a Black woman in this life on this journey. It is a difficult one. At the intersection of sexism and racism and the realities of the day-to-day life, it's important to recognize that if we're again on this highway of life, what's happening is that some people, based on your identities, have the ability to simply drive the speed limit. Some people get to drive below the speed limit. I believe that Black women drive at 90 miles an hour, sometimes to a mandated destination, sometimes without a GPS. That's what's happening to the people around you. And I want to name that because I think it's important, because you might see a lot of the Black women around you this year taking a different approach to how we engage. And I want you to know it's not about you Well, maybe a little bit. It's about it's about the world we live in. Okay, yeah, let me take that back. It is feeling very much like you've been involved in a lot of labor and not necessarily having the support that you need. That can mean from going to the doctor's office and someone just not caring for you. Let me give you a practical situation that you can understand in your own day-to-day lives. How many people know what the Crown Act is? So for those of you who don't know, the Crown Act is legislation that was passed so that discrimination against people with textured hair becomes illegal in a hiring context. The reality of the circumstance is that this is literally how my hair grows out of my head. And for many years, it was deemed unprofessional. I'm also a person that in my lifetime, as a manager of groups of people, I've had to write an email on Sunday to say, hey, y'all, I got braids, so that I didn't have to spend 4 hours of the next day explaining to people about the process and what happens, right? This kind of stuff happens, right? And so, again, on our journeys, it is very important that when we're looking out the window, we're paying close attention. And not only are we seeing things, we're asking questions about those things, and we're being curious about those things, and we're letting our curiosity drive us, because our curiosity will drive us to research things. Like, how many times have you asked your phone the most ridiculous things? Like, how many feet are in a mile, right? We do those kinds of things all the time. But I want you to know that as you're on this journey, it is really important to have an awareness of the people around you. It is important to wake the heck up. We cannot sleep through this. There are many people around us who, for many reasons, are suffering. It's just important to know that those things are happening. And part of me wants to apologize for not coming in with like a bright, shiny, but today you found me where I am. And I think that the best thing I can do for you today is be honest about my own situation and circumstance, because you always see the woman, if you know who I am, you see the woman on the website with the blazer and the smiles. And sometimes there's a lot going on behind the smiles. And I want you to recognize that for every person that's in this room, there's a lot going on behind whatever it is that you see. While you're on this journey, I want you to keep pushing yourself. I want you to stay curious. I want you to stay involved, stay engaged. Don't sit on the sidelines, because too much depends on you. I want to say thank you for having me today. It's been wonderful to just talk to you or at you for a little bit. And I have copies of my book in the back. I'm sure Drew's going to come up here and tell me that I need to do something or say something, but I just want to say thank you very much for letting me be here and letting me be. Yes, also, just if you want to connect with me, there's a QR code here that you can sign up and join my mailing list. Also, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love that. And also follow me on Instagram, the one and only Seena. So if you took any photos today, just please tag me. I love that.